Welcome, Dr. Dain.
Thank you, Emily. Happy birthday.
Happy Global Bars Day. So
Yay.
How did we get so lucky to have you as our first interview guest to talk about none other than what is consciousness?
Consciousness. It's so big and so good.
So I want to start with a quote from you because it's one of my favorites about consciousness. It's, consciousness is where the lightness of your awareness, the lightness of your choice, the lightness of your difference shines so brightly that the world can no longer live in darkness. And that. And here you are, you're the co-creator of Access Consciousness. Can you start by talking a little bit about what the heck is consciousness?
Yeah, well, one of the things that is different is that in Access Consciousness, we actually have a definition for consciousnness, which is where everything exists and nothing is judged. And that means you also. And it's, so there's so many people talking about consciousness now. They've gotten on the bandwagon, so to speak. You know, a lot of people who used to talk about spirituality are now having the same conversation, but calling it consciousness. And there's one vital difference in that in consciousness, you don't make anything or anyone wrong, including you. And you don't make anyone or anything right, including you. And that spins people's heads out. If you just take a moment with that, like imagine if we lived in a world where you weren't wrong, just let's try that for a moment, and had the space of that, like not from I'm wrong, but I'm going to try not to be wrong in my head, but from, wow, there is no wrongness in my world. That is just one element of what consciousness offers. And then if you could expand that out to the world, like if we lived in a world where wrongness didn't exist, that is a world of consciousness. And so a lot of times, you know, I'll say this and bring that space into the conversation, if you will, because anything you're energetically congruent with while you're speaking becomes available to anybody who's listening to you and to you. And so just in that, I would just invite everybody to notice if something sort of changes, it softens, becomes more available to you. And so like just with pondering the possibility. And now what I would do, and this is something that I would love people to get if they can just allow themselves the freedom to, which is now let's ask for that as our world. Your ask creates. That's another element of consciousness, is that your ask creates. When you ask, you begin to receive. That's actually the beginning of creation. Now, it actualizing, it showing up in the world may take a while, but with enough of us asking, that becomes a possibility. So let's ask, and let's say, hey, consciousness, hey, universe, whatever's out there that will contribute to making that a reality, we're asking for this collectively. Can we have that, please? And don't expect it to show up tomorrow, by the way, but allow it to show up when it will and when it can, because consciousness, the other thing is, Einstein said every molecule has consciousness. And so the consciousness of every molecule is aware of every other molecule in its consciousness, that's another one that spins your head. So I guess consciousness is where there's all kinds of concepts that spin your head, but make you feel really relaxed and give you a sense of possibilities and happiness. And now if we could look at the side of being right, you know, probably if we let go of wrong, we wouldn't need right anymore, because what we try to do is we try to find something that we can do and be right, because so many of the seekers of the world, and the seekers of the world are the ones that are interested in this conversation about consciousness. And let's face it, there are a lot of people in the world that are not seekers. There are a lot of people that you'll say, oh, I just heard this amazing concept, or I just read this amazing book, or saw this amazing movie. I know it's just what you need. And they're like, that shit doesn't work. So don't worry about that. Okay. There's a lot of seekers and there are a lot of not seekers, but it doesn't matter. It's the seekers of the world that are interested in this conversation about consciousness currently. And with that, you want to recognize that there's something different about you. That difference of you is actually the gift of you. And with that quote that Emily read, notice that it's about where you get to be the lightness. You are the bright, shining light in this world. And if enough of us choose that, that's what becomes available as our world. And so the other thing about, well, I'm sure you probably have more questions because I could talk my entire time without
I like when you keep going.
So.
I like this. This is great.
Well, the other thing about consciousness is if you look at it, it's about awareness. Okay, a lot of people have the idea, if my eyes are open, I'm conscious. And it's not exactly the case. Yes, you are awake, perhaps, maybe sleepwalking through your day, but just because your eyes are open doesn't mean you're conscious. Just because your eyes are open doesn't mean that you're functioning from the awareness that you could. And it's our fixed points of view that get in the way of awareness. You know, and in Access, we have amazing ways of changing our fixed points of view. But what the awareness gives you is we have reality as we've all sort of created and constructed it as whatever it is. Like we see what's going on in the world right now as one example. And a lot of people are aligning and agreeing that all of this is real and true and terrible and going to destroy the world in one way or another. And with more people aligning and agreeing on a particular point of view, aligning that it's real and true, agreeing that this is going to happen, that's what we create. Like if you saw the movie Tomorrowland, and if you haven't, I highly recommend watching it because the world is going to end. Earth is literally going to be destroyed because everybody has agreed and aligned that that's what's going to happen. And the solution is the seekers and the dreamers of the world that they find to go out into the world to awaken the other dreamers. And that is what changes the fate of the planet. Well, we're kind of living in Tomorrowland in a sense, but whereas a lot of other people see doom and gloom and they're resisting this and fighting that, what I see is possibilities. What I see is we are creating something different on the planet, and we had to press a big red reset button in order to get there. And so your point of view, one of the other elements of consciousness is your point of view creates your reality. Reality does not create your point of view. So if you've ever had the point of view that it's something is going to be tough, it's always tough. If you have the point of view that it's going to be easy, it's easy. Like two people can experience the exact same thing, but one person will be like, oh, you know what, this is going to be easy and this is going to be okay. And that's what shows up for them. And the other person's like, ah, like I used to do my whole life, freak out about it. And it would be trauma and drama. It's because your point of view creates your reality. Reality does not create your point of view. One of the other gifts of Access and one of the other gifts of the bars really dynamically is that it starts melting those fixed points of view that make things stressful for you, that make you not be able to see possibilities, that keep you in a tiny box and keep you trying to pigeonhole your life and trying to get it solid enough and small enough to be able to control. What Access and bars gives you is this space of more consciousness, because the other thing about consciousness, it has a lot of space to it. Yeah. And so there's all of these things that come together that basically just make your life awesome. You know, and a lot of people would like a way more awesome life. I know that's what I needed. 20 years ago, what occurred for me was I was going to end my life if things didn't change. I was in a constant state of judgment of myself. And from the outside, it looked like I had the perfect life, but I was dying inside. I hadn't been happy for almost 3 years. And no matter what I tried to create, it seemed like it failed. And I was just considering myself a failure. Here I am, a doctor, trying to help other people, dying inside. And I am a seeker. So I would go to every weekend workshop I could find. I was reading 5 books at a time. And because I knew there had to be something different. I think that's the thing about seekers is you just somewhere in your world, there has to be something different. Even if you don't know that you know that yet. Okay. But if you're looking for something different, that's what I'm talking about when I say you're being a seeker. Well, I got to a place after one of those weekend workshops, because what would happen is I'd go spend the weekend there and think, yay, I finally found the answer. My life is really going to change now. Because all I was looking for basically was to get happy and be able to create what I wanted in life. I wasn't asking for too much, And Wednesday, after one of those weekend workshops, the universe caved in on my head again, and I felt like I hadn't gone anywhere, and I lost everything that I had gotten over the weekend, and felt like the worst person in the world. And I finally said, look, universe, you got 6 months. My life changes or I'm out of here. And I planned a date to get out of here. And a week later, I saw an ad for Access Consciousness. And I went and I had a session. And I went into the session. Oh, I resisted the session, by the way. But I went into the session depressed and suicidal. And I came out of it with a sense of gratitude for being alive. And I'll never forget looking up at the blue sky and the clouds, looking out of my window, because we had done the session in my office, and it was actually Gary Douglas's daughter, Shannon, who did the session on me. And I remember looking out and going, has it always been this beautiful here? If it feels this way to be alive, I'm in, okay? And what it gave me was the awareness of the energy I had been seeking was actually possible, like the space of being, the joy of being alive, the gratitude for being alive, the sense of everything being awesome. It was possible. But not only that, it changed for me in an hour and 15 minutes. And what that gave me the awareness of was how fast things could change, because I always knew they should be able to change that way. And with everything else I was doing, it was taking so long, and then it would go away. Well, so fast forward 20 years later, here I am trying to let people know that's possible. And I'm not going to say that, everybody has the same experience I did with bars, but basically, I'm sure people will hear this phrase throughout the day, but at the worst, you feel like you had a good massage. At the best, your whole life will change. And I needed my whole life to change, and it did. And so what that gave me was a sense of what it could truly be like to be alive. And I had been looking for this my whole life, because I saw people who were unhappy. I saw people who were fighting other people. I saw the people in the church that I went to that were making everybody else wrong, and we are right, and we're the only ones going to heaven. And even as a little kid, I looked at that and I'm like, the people in this room are the only ones going to heaven and everybody else is going to hell? What? I mean, even as a little kid, I didn't understand what I was being told, because it didn't make any sense to me. And so consciousness is the space of awareness of every possibility. Consciousness is also the awareness of how to actualize those possibilities or bring them into the world. And I want to say one other thing, especially given the state of the world, is that consciousness is the one thing that has the capacity to create a totally different reality and world. And when I say that, I'm not talking about access consciousness, like you've got to do access or the world's going to die. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is consciousness, meaning becoming more aware, becoming less judgmental, living your life from those things that actually bring more lightness to you, because what's light for you is always true for you. A lie for you or something that's not true for you will always make you heavy. And so what's true for you makes you lighter. A lie makes you heavier. Living from those things that bring more lightness to your life. And rather than getting embroiled in the events of the world right now, have them as an interesting point of view where you still create your life. In other words, you don't avoid the world. You don't avoid living because the world has what it's got going on. And one of the things that I've seen with so many of the people that have done access consciousness for any length of time, or who even started during the pandemic, was that they weren't affected like other people were. They weren't the effect. Why? Because your point of view creates your reality, and they were able to let go of their fixed points of view. And anytime they got stuck, they would use access tools and unstick it. They would get their bars run. They would do verbal processes, etc. But that's what's possible from consciousness. Consciousness gives us awareness of things that don't currently exist. Consciousness gives us awareness of possibilities that don't currently exist or don't seem to currently exist in the world that we live in. That's part of the gift of it, is all the stuff that becomes available to us that we don't even realize can exist yet. And that makes life magical.
And can you say something else too about, you mentioned consciousness is actually about enjoying your life and having fun. And I think one of the fixed points of view or misconceptions out there is that consciousness should be really hard or serious, and that you maybe should be wearing linen robes and, not having too much fun in your life, and definitely don't desire anything nice in your life, because that wouldn't be super conscious. Could you talk about some of those fixed points of views and misconceptions about consciousness?
Yeah, consciousness is not spirituality, okay? Consciousness is not a new religion, like spirituality has become in a lot of people's worlds. If anything is making you wrong, it's not consciousness. And in that idea that I'm not being enough for the world because I haven't meditated in a cave for 16 years, and I actually like nice things and nice clothes, and I actually like having money, and I love bringing up money because that's one of the big points. One of the big things that people avoid as a way of trying to be a better person is money. And my question to you is, can you change the world more with money or without money? And let's face it, we all know the answer is actually with money, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Pardon me, I'm just turning off my beepy thing here. Okay. So we all know that you can change the world more with money. Now, is that to say you require money to change the world? No. But can you change it easily and more effectively? Like if you see somebody where your contribution of money would allow them to have a greater future, and so I'm bringing up money because that's one of the big ones, and it's a sticking point for a lot of people who truly desire more for both them and the world, which is interesting. There was a time where I had this kid that I could have contributed to, who, if he had the money, could have gotten away from the situation that he was in, but he didn't have the money, and I didn't have the money to contribute because I was of the opinion that people with money are bad. Well, that's an anti-conscious and unconscious point of view, okay? What do I mean by that? People with money are people with money. People with money are not bad. People with money are not good. People with money are whoever the heck they are. And this is an awareness that we get from consciousness, which is, this is not good, this is not bad, it is what it is. And so it's people with money choosing to not create greater with it that we all see and that we don't want to be. Well, if you had a lot of money, would you do that? Would you be as selfish as so many people you see that have a lot of money? Or would you actually use it to contribute to creating a greater future? If you'd use it to contribute to creating a greater future, why would you not allow yourself to have it? And so this is just one of the myths that we have. We have so many myths about what consciousness is. So let me fast forward. At a certain point, I had a conversation with Gary, the founder of Access, when I first started doing Access. And I was loving Access because I would get my bars run once a week. And I would also get a tool to use during that week for when the universe wanted to cave in on my head again. And I would use that tool, and it would get lighter and lighter and lighter. So every week I got my bars run, I got lighter and lighter and lighter. And I started having this sense of, oh my goodness, it's possible. Like I can actually be really, really like light, and oh my goodness. And it was so wonderful, so exciting for me. And and so here I was up with Gary. We were shoveling horse shit because he had horses, and that's what you do. He's like, hey, I'm like, Gary, can I talk to you? He's like, yeah, if you come shovel horse shit with me, because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm like, to talk to you, I'll shovel anything. Don't worry about it, because he was just such a cool guy to hang out with because he didn't judge. Let's think about this for a moment. Okay, pardon my ADHD, by the way. For those of you that don't know, I have ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism all rolled into one. And so I say all kinds of things. I go from here to here to here to here to here. And sometimes I get back to what I was saying. So if I don't, I apologize. But one of the great things about being around Gary was that he had no judgment. I could tell him anything and he wouldn't judge it. But not only could I tell him anything, but he was just this space of whatever you are is okay. I like you just as you are. Like everybody, think about, do you have one person in your life that doesn't judge you? That doesn't think you should be different than you are right now? That's not always telling you what you do wrong, but just actually likes you for you? What's it like being around that person? You notice when you're around them, it feels like after a few minutes, the weight of the world comes off of your shoulders. Well, that weight is all the judgments that you have been carrying around with you, both yours and other people's. And so being around somebody who doesn't judge is this lightness in this space, but that's the lightness and space that consciousness is. And it's a choice that we all have. And it's a choice that we have so dynamically that we often forget it because it's so present, but it's a choice for all of us. You don't have to meditate in a cave. You don't have to meditate at all. You can if you, but it's not wrong if you do. It's also not right if you do. It just is something, if it contributes to you and makes you a lighter, happier person, you should be doing it. So back to money, if it contributes to you being a lighter, happier person, then why should you not be doing it? It's the spiritual world that we have all experienced at one time or another. And it's funny that I've been talking about spirituality so much. I don't usually talk about spirituality very much. Apparently, it's something that may hopefully contribute to people out there, because also because I'm having this conversation as a way of trying to give y'all a different perspective, but also a perspective that allows you to come out of the judgment of you. Like Emily mentioned, we have so many points of view about, I'm not doing enough, I'm not being enough because I haven't snorted my patchouli today, I haven't meditated today, so therefore I'm not a good enough person, and that compounds day after day, week after week, until we're just buried with this mountain of judgment. So here I was, hanging out with Gary, guy space of no judgment. And what he said to me, I was asking him about money, and he said, look, the purpose of money is to change people's realities. And I went, what? He said, the purpose of money is to change people's realities. And I was like, okay, well, if that's what it's all about, I want to have some now. So it changed my whole perspective, because I had the same point of view. I had the same stuff in my world, that I wasn't a good enough person because I didn't meditate enough, and I didn't eat cleanly enough, and I didn't, and I had all these judgments in my head, and I thought I was judgmental of other people, and I knew I was judgmental of myself and my body, and I liked nice things too much, but I couldn't afford them, and like blah, 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 all these reasons. What if we let go of all those reasons and justifications for why we're not enough? That's part of what you get with bars, and it's part of what you get with consciousness. And so after he said that, I started asking for money. And I started asking, hey, universe, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I would like more money now, please. And that's where every creation begins, by the way, with a request. But then you have to do two things. You have to not expect it to show up tomorrow. And you don't even have to bother asking again tomorrow. As soon as you ask, the universe goes into the creation mode for you. But it takes a while for the universe to rearrange itself for you to have what you're asking for. But the second thing that you need to do is, when something shows up that shows you a fixed point of view you have that's limiting you, you need to be willing to get rid of it, which is where access tools come in. So long story short, I was at a place where I had finally started being willing to receive money, because money is more a matter of receiving than anything else. And I told Gary, I said, I've got this money issue. He said, there's no such thing as a money issue. It's only what you're willing to receive. And I was like, what? And he said these two things in the same conversation. And I was like a stunned mullet, like somebody had hit me over the head with a little hammer. And I was like my reality going, exploding apart in bits. And so I have a nephew who is one of the most amazing. You know how you meet some kids and they're so friggin' smart and they're so friggin' kind. And like, he was a true gentleman at 6 years old. Okay. And he was going to school, and in first grade, I don't remember the grades very well. These things don't stick in my brain. But I think it was in first grade, kindergarten, first grade. The teacher loved him. He was coming home happy. He went to second grade and had a teacher who was not a seeker. Okay. His teacher was one of these people, you do everything by the rules. And he will follow the rules, but he's so brilliant that to put him in a box like that is so unkind. And he was getting judged by his teacher. And he was coming home with his shoulders slumped at 7, 8 years old. And he was like, and I talked to my sister, and she's like, and she was telling me what was going on. And this kid went from happy to depressed from school. And I said, look, you need to change something. I said, find a private school. I said, that teacher is judging him and you can't do anything because it's a public school. I said, find a private school. And she's like, I don't have the money to pay for a private school. I said, you find a friggin' private school and we'll talk. Well, it turns out there was one 1.5 miles from their house. He went there one day and came back, and he was him again, because the teacher loved all the questions he was asking. He was made wrong for asking questions in the other school. And he came back and he's like, oh, Mom, check this out. I've asked this and I asked this and I asked this. And then this friend, and I had this person, and I walked with him, and I mean, he was just excited about everything. I said, you get him in that school tomorrow. And she said, I don't have the money to pay for it. And I said, I'm paying for it. And she's like, I can't let you do that. I said, this is between me and him. You shut up. You go get him in that damn school, and I'm paying for it. And because I could see the future that it would create for his life. Now, this is not about me. This is about us, okay? This is about, had I been in the financial situation I was in before Access, there's no way I could have had any effect on this kid's life. Well, right now, he's playing volleyball at a school in Arizona, and he is one of the kindest, most outgoing, intelligent, gentle, generous gentlemen I know. And I know several amazing people. And had he gone and had to go through all of that, who knows what his future would have been. He probably still would have been able to pull himself out of it, but the ease would not have been there. That's part of the contribution that we can be. Number one, when we get out of judgment. And number two, when we allow ourselves to have whatever resources we can have that will allow us to contribute to making people's lives greater and making our own greater. We have this weird idea that if we're having a great life, we're doing something wrong, as though us sitting and judging us is the gift that we give to the world. No, my beautiful friends, you getting out of judgment of you is the gift you give to the world. That is the gift you give to the world. Because when you create from that space, then you also judge other people less. Well, I'm going to say you probably don't judge them right now, but you think you do. But if we got out of judgment of us and others, if we got out of judgment of what's going on in the world, we would be a space that would inspire other people who desire possibilities to know that those possibilities could exist. And they would occur a lot faster. It's this incessant, inherent idea that we must judge us to make ourselves greater that causes us to judge us into less.
And it's so funny because I remember the judgment conversation being one of the first conversations I heard in Access Consciousness. And it's so insidious. I was like, I don't think I'm in judgment of myself. I don't think I judge a lot. And it's because it was just so dynamically in my world and everything. I couldn't even recognize how much it was running my life. And so can you talk a bit about getting out of judgment and what that looks like? Because the tools of Access are phenomenal in so many areas. And can you talk about some, like if someone's sitting here, well, okay, great, I'd like to have no judgment. I mean, I think before you came on, the definition you have of consciousness and Access is consciousness includes everything and everyone and judges nothing and no one. And so if someone's listening, okay, I would like to get out of judgment, how do you give them some tools to start that opening and space?
I'd say the beginning is get your bars run, okay? We do Global Bars Day for a reason, because it's such a dynamic. Here's the thing is with bars and actually with so much of Access, the ADHD, but I'm trying to explain something that I don't even know is explainable because we so function from some mental idea of the limits of reality and what reality can be. And it's that mental box of reality that we create where we look at how would we get somewhere? How would we even change this? But we look from within the box of everything I've experienced, how do I change my experience? Except you can't. You've got to experience something outside of that box that actually exists. And we got to stop believing that the box of reality we've created is the sum total of realities that can exist. It's not. It's one fabric of reality that has existed for you based on your past choices. But we need to get outside of that box in order to be able to perceive the box, in order to be able to have different choices. So bars does that. And you're like, yes, but how could bars work? Your little brain goes into computing kind of like a little robot. How could bars work? Please tell me the mechanism of action of bars. And the mechanism of action is it blows your mind, okay? It fries the circuits of that fucking judgment system that you have made more real and more valuable than you, that you think is necessary to interact in this reality. And it puts it aside for a little bit. If you want a more accurate technical description, it takes the electromagnetic component of thought and the polarized component of thought, and depolarizes it. So you're no longer functioning from positive and negative as your primary reality. It is something that is outside of the box, okay? And for those of you who have a judgment of the word fuck, I fucking apologize, okay? I'm really fucking sorry. I shouldn't have fucking said that. Okay, everything that brought up. Now the clearing statement, right, wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyond. Because here's the thing. Notice when you get, and here, I'm actually answering your question, whether you believe it or not. Okay,
I know.
But notice when you get triggered by something, that's a place you have a judgment that you don't know you have. Because if all of our judgments were hanging in front of our face, like, mistletoe at Christmas, that would be easy. We'd be like, oh, let me pick that one off. Let me pick that one. Let me pick that one. Let me pick that one. That's not the way it works, though. The way it works is you have a judgment of something when somebody says something and you get triggered. Like you either want to fight or you go, oh, or you're like, oh my God, they're bad and wrong. Or, oh my God, I'm bad and wrong. That's how you know you have a judgment of something. So it's a great gift when these things come up that get you triggered, because that lets you know where you have a fixed point of view. Could you imagine being able to be in the world and have somebody say to you, you're a jerk, and you go, oh, thank you, and really mean it, like really not have to try to fight against it or anything, okay? So the space of no judgment occurs when we function from something called interesting point of view, okay? And there's a way of using this as a tool, which is really awesome, and it's easy to use, and I invite people to use it. And one of the things I have been judged for, I don't know, billions of times, so much, is being too much. How many of you have been judged for being too much? And when you're judged for being too much, here's the weird part about judgment, okay? Judgment is like a weird social disease with a higher friggin' infection rate, a higher friggin' rate of transmission than anything else in the universe, okay? And so the way judgment works is if you were judged for something when you were a kid, you then get in your head, oh, that is wrong to be, therefore I will not be it. But then anyone else you see that's being what you were judged for, you then judge them for being it because that's what was done to you. What? So if you were judged for being too much, and let's face it, most of the people watching this were at some point judged for being too much. Why? Because you just naturally had so much energy, if you can remember back to then, before you were made wrong for it, so you shut it down or hid it even from you. Because what we'll do is we'll hide what we're judged for from other people so they don't judge us. But if we do that long enough, we hide it from us and we can't access it anymore. And so look back to a time when you were a little kid before you started shutting it down and see if there's a time where you had so much energy you didn't know what to do. Okay, and some of you are like, oh my goodness, I remember that. And at that point, I would ask them, okay, so at what age did you give up being truly joyful? At what age did you give up being truly at ease in your life? At what age did you give up knowing that everything was possible? And whatever you decided way back then, will you now let that go, destroy and uncreate it, and invite that energy into your life and your being again? Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And if you don't know what that is, you can find it at theclearingstatement.com. It's one of the things that, when coupled with bars, allows you to change almost anything, okay? It's called the clearing statement. Okay, so this thing about judgment, and so when I brought up the too much, it's something that we're judged for and then we make ourselves less. Like if you're too happy, if you have too much money, if something is too easy for you, if you're not having a tough time during the pandemic while you're supposed to, all of these things we get judged for being too much. And so we try not to be as too much as we are because we assume that if we're getting judged for something, then we must be doing something wrong. My friends, I have another perspective for you. What if you're getting judged for something, it's when you're doing something right? What if when you're being judged for something, it's when you're doing something beyond the box of other people's realities, and they're trying to fit you back into the box of what they decided was reality, but that ain't your box of reality? What if you're dancing around out here like a neon colored sheep, a brightly colored unicorn, farting rainbows everywhere, And they're trying to put you back into the box so you're not a neon sheep, rainbow colored farting unicorn anymore. And what if their judgment of you was an acknowledgement that you are wrinkling their world of judgment and they're not having an easy time with it? So what if when you're being judged for something, what if that's when you're actually being the change the world and the earth desire and require? Now, I don't say that for permission for you to go be mean to people. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? If you're being mean to somebody and they're, okay, so please get this. If you're being mean to somebody and you're, doing it, whatever, and they're judging you back, that's a different story. I'm talking about in the course of your life while you're being you. So what is one of the things that we can do to start to change this? If we could be interesting point of view about every point of view we have and every point of view everybody else has, we have total freedom. Because if you choose to be interesting point of view, you're like the rock in the stream. And all these thoughts, ideas, attitudes, judgments, beliefs come at you and they go around you and you're still the rock in the stream. And what the earth requires now is more people who are willing to be the rock in the stream, not taken away by the stream. And if you don't come down to the level of judgment, you become that. For those of you who truly desire to create something different in the world, so now we're having going on to a bit of the larger conversation that can be had, but in a really simple way. If you desire to be a contribution to creating a kinder, more gentle world of possibilities where domination by idiots doesn't apply, then the greatest gift you can give you and the world is to get to interesting point of view about every point of view you have. And bars is one of the most effective things I've ever seen to help you to get there. How does it work? It works. There you go. I don't know how an internal combustion engine works, but I love driving my car. So kind of the same thing with bars. I have an idea, but I can't explain to you because how do you explain magic? How do you explain a miracle? I don't know. So anyway, this interesting point of view thing, let me show you how to use the tool. What you do is get some upset that you've had in your life or your world lately. How do you know there's been an upset? Because there's still a stuck energy or somebody you think about and you're like, okay? Anytime you have, you're not being interesting point of view, but you're also not being you, the being. Because you, the being, would you, the being, judge? I mean, if we look at little kids, when they come in, do they judge? They don't know how until we teach them. What? Yeah, they don't judge. They don't know how until we teach them how to judge. And so you as a being, would you truly judge if you hadn't been taught how to judge? No. But given that you have been taught how to judge, let's acknowledge that you have been taught how to judge. And now you have the choice to go beyond it. And that choice to go beyond judgment is one of the greatest sources of freedom that exists in the world. That choice to go beyond judgment is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and the world. And with enough of us choosing that, just ponder this for a moment. If everybody on the planet got out of judgment today, how different would tomorrow be? Well, really friggin' different. Okay, well, you got the sense of that for a moment. And I'm going quick because you get it that quick. As soon as I ask the question, you're like, oh, that. Okay, a lot of people are like, let me, hold on, let me figure it out. Hold on, let me figure it out. You're faster than that. You're way faster than that. So let's ask for that world now together. And everything that doesn't allow it, will you let it go? Will you destroy? Will you uncreate it? And will you change it, please? Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds. So here we go. How do we get there? Well, bars is one of the biggest. I still get my bars run as often as I possibly can, okay? Because it's awesome. That's why. Next, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. So get an energy, get some stuck yuck in your world that you still have from someone or something, some situation. It could be anything. And what I'd like you to do is to that energy, go, interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Let me say it slower. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Because when you do that, you're taking an infinite being That's you. Oh, I know. We'll explain more of that later. That's way beyond today's conversation. You're taking infinite being that is you and compressing it into a point that says, this is my perspective on this situation. That is a point that helps create the box. See, the box of your reality is created by all those points put together as a solid block. One of the greatest ways, and when you're in that box of reality, which is like being in the middle of a concrete block, there is no sense of space because all of these points of view are solid around you and you fight to the death to maintain them, which is where you have a constant state of judgment of you for not having the right point of view, constant state of judgment of you for having the wrong point of view, doing the wrong thing, never doing the right thing, never being enough, never being good enough. By the way, everything that is, will you destroy and uncreate it, please? Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. So, one more time, get the energy that we were talking about. Now, having just said it one time, you may notice it's already changing. But I'd like you to get whatever version, whatever it is now, and say to it, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. And again, because it usually changes again, to the energy that's there now. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. And again, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. What happened to it? For most people, it just kind of dissolves. That is a gift because we've been taught so dynamically. If we look once again at when we were little kids, we've been taught so dynamically that we must have a point of view about everything. Like when you were a little kid and somebody asked you something and you didn't have a strong enough point of view, how many times did your parents say, you need to take a point of view on something? You need to, and what they meant was you need to be more solid and have a more solid reality filled with points of view that you put forth to the world as though that is you. Well, from a space of interesting point of view, from a space of consciousness, rather than putting this solid block that is you forward as though that is you in the world, what you do is you present a space of infinite possibilities to the world where anything is possible, any change can exist, any miracle could happen at any moment. And no one is right and no one is wrong for what they're choosing, but you still have the awareness of when somebody's choosing something that isn't going to create more, but you don't make it wrong, you realize, well, that's not where I'd like to go. What's it going to take for me to get this to go where I would like to go? So you have total choice, but it's not from the judgment of right or wrong. So if you ever get an upset in your world, or there's some energy you can't shake, or you just get yuck or stuck, you want to go, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Now, one other thing that can be very helpful along with this interesting point of view conversation, and all of this is actually speaking to that question of what is consciousness, but also the ability to get out of judgment of us and the ability to get out of the idea that things are right and things are wrong, etc. This is all part of that conversation. And we could have this conversation for days, by the way. There's a lot to talk about because it's the big world, So imagine, let me give you a different way of dealing with what comes at you in the world, okay? And that is, so imagine somebody standing in front of you and judging you or saying, you're a jerk, you're a terrible person or whatever. Usually they don't say it, they just think it, okay? The way to handle that situation, rather than putting up walls and barriers, because that keeps you in the box, what you want to do is lower your walls and barriers and just let that energy on through. Like, let it go through your body, from the front, through the back, and out somewhere into the universe. You don't even have to deal with it. Somebody says you're a jerk, lower the walls and barriers, and in your head you can think interesting point of view, but you just let it on through. You don't resist and react. You don't align and agree, because alignment and agreement is, oh, that's true. Resistance and reaction is, well, I'm going to prove that's not true by fighting you. Interesting point of view is, oh, interesting you have that point of view. Thank you. Or you could go, what did you mean by that? It's a tool for freedom in the world, and we have, thousands of tools and access, and I got to say, bars is still one of my favorites because it just creates space. It starts breaking apart that box of points of view that we have. But if you could be interesting point of view, you'd live a life of total ease.
And all of the things you're talking about, like access bars, interesting point of view, lowering the walls and barriers, it's like you move beyond judgment and there's this universe of magic that's possible. And you've been doing this for 20 years, like co-creating access with Gary Douglas. And I imagine for 20 years, you keep finding new spaces of magic and possibilities. So do you want to talk a little bit? We're going to wrap it up soon, but I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about, okay, when I go beyond the judgment, the magic that can be possible with just being alive.
Yeah, that is actually where the magic exists. But it doesn't mean, because the other thing people hear in that is, well, I've got to get rid of all my judgment before I have any magic. No, that's not the way it works, okay? In other words, for any little bit of judgment you get rid of, you multiply the magic potential by 1,000. In other words, it's making the choice. See, for most of what we would like to create, we don't know the how, because we've lived in that box of reality that tells us things occur only this way. So when you're asking for something beyond the box, beyond what your reality was or beyond what you think it is or has been, you want to have this willingness to ask for it. Like, get the sense of, or just ask for it. Like right now, here, we're having this conversation. If you desire that, just ask for it and then say, hey, universe, consciousness, please help. And because we one of the greatest elements of creating miracles is our willingness to ask and receive. And ask and you shall receive is actually the creation of miracles. That's the basis of miraculousness. Being able to ask and actually receive is miraculousness in motion, okay? And so with that awareness then, for anything you would like to ask for from this point forward, here's what you do. If you can, get a sense of the energy of the way it would be. Like if you had a magic wand and that could actually occur for you, or if somebody else had a magic wand and they could make it happen for you, get the sense of you living with that thing change. So for example, if you live in a lot of judgment, get the sense of the way it could be with you not living in judgment. If you'd like to have a happier world, get the sense of the way it would be to wake up in a happier world and have people actually contribute to each other rather than trying to take from each other. Get the sense of that and then just ask for it. Say, I'm asking for this. Dear universe, dear consciousness, please help. And you say, I'm asking for this, so you acknowledge to you that you're asking, okay? The universe already knows. As soon as you ask, the universe is already on board with you. And all the consciousness of the universe, remember, every molecule is consciousness and every molecule is interconnected with its consciousness. And so every molecule in the universe actually goes into motion to start making that a reality for you. And you'll see things show up that you consider a friggin' miracle because you couldn't figure out how that would show up, just based on you requesting that and then being willing to have it show up in whatever way it can. And so you are right. I've been doing this 20 years and I feel like I'm on page 3, maybe page 4 at this point of the book of possibilities. Felt like it took me many, many, many years to get through the introduction. I finally got through the introduction. I'm just getting started. Yeah. I'm just warming up. Like my rocket ship, I've barely left the launch pad. It's still in that phase where, you know how the rocket, it seems like it goes slow for a while before it goes really fast. My rocket, it's taken off finally. Dear Lord, did the prep take a long friggin' time? What are those people at NASA doing with my friggin' rocket? I don't know, but it took them years to prep my friggin' rocket, okay? Asshole. Anyway, that was not my time frame. I was like, I'll have consciousness right now. Thank you very much. But I had a lot of boxes that I didn't know that I had. A lot of boxes that filled with fixed points of view that I've been shoveling out for years. And I got to tell you, the possibilities are just increasing. And for those of you who are just coming to Access right now, and you're like, whoa, seriously, great time. You showed up at a great time, because truly, miraculousness is within our midst. And I can't explain that to you. I say it, if it makes you lighter, then it's true. If it makes you heavier, then maybe it's not true for you, or doesn't have to be. You can still listen to everything else I say. If any part makes you heavier, you can just be like, oh, not for me right now. No problem. You can still take everything else that makes you lighter. But I'm telling you, you chose a great time, because miraculousness is in our midst. Ask and you shall receive is more available than it ever has been before. And the choices, and here's the other thing is, I want to say, because I talked a lot about spirituality, I want to say to all of you that are seekers that have looked for something different, and even if you didn't realize you were, you may be one of those weird people who was just kind and out of judgment anyway. I love you. I adore you. That is wonderful. Okay. But it's all the choices that all of us have made, not just those of us in Access Consciousness, all the choices you made with your seeking to seek greater possibilities, all the choices you've made to get out of judgment in whatever way you have, all the choices you've made to consider the possibilities for miraculousness and not kill them in your world and not let them be taken from you, that are creating the world that we have right now. With us, instead of trying to judge or fight against what's going on to get where we know is possible to go, what else is possible in the next couple of years? Next 2 to 3 years? What else can we change? What else can we create? What if we truly could create a miraculous reality and a miraculous, beautiful, contributory world of communion and presence with Earth, where we are so present with Earth that we actually listen to it, where we actually let it contribute to us in our choices, in our bodies, where we actually let it contribute to know what to build, where to build, where we let it contribute awareness of what is possible to create, and where we let every other element of consciousness contribute. The possibilities are just beginning, my beautiful friends. And I'm so glad you were here to experience them. Truly grateful that you were here.
And what a different conversation to be having right now, because again, you mentioned your point of view creates your reality, but the conversation on possibilities right now, when a lot of the world is looking to how bad, wrong, and terrible things are. And you have a way of inviting more possibilities. And I mean, Access Consciousness is sort of all about that. Do you want to maybe give a couple questions or anything, or anywhere you want to go about inviting in more of those possibilities, that energy that you're talking about? Because when you speak of that, the whole energy of the conversation just kind of goes whoosh.
I like yes.
Me too.
So a few things you want to ask. What's right about me, I'm not getting. What's right about this, I'm not getting for any situation that you're making wrong. But also, what can I be today to create the future I desire right away? And see, I wrote a book called Being You, Changing the World, because I realized a long time ago that where everything was possible is when we're being us. And so what can I be today to create the future I truly desire, or the future, or what can I be to create the future I would truly like to see, is a way that you can put it so it rhymes, so you might remember it. At least it rhymes in English. We have several languages where it probably doesn't rhyme, but in English, at least it rhymes. Sorry, translators around the world. And the very act of questioning is the doorway to miracles. So what's right about this, I'm not getting. What else is possible here that I've never considered? How much fun can I have today? How does it get any better than this whenever something good or bad happens? Also, what beyond this reality possibilities are available? What beyond this reality possibilities are available to me that I think are not possible, that if I allowed the possibilities would actualize a different reality? Now that one might be a little tough. If you're brand new, you're kind of like, well, that was a long sentence. So I'm going to say it one more time. What beyond this reality possibilities? Notice, beyond this reality possibilities, meaning, so we have our little box, right? Well, imagine everybody's box put together in one big box. That's what we call this reality, okay? It's the box of fixed points of view called reality, as though that's the only choice you have. Thank you very much for buying it, Crapco. Anyway, so when you ask what beyond this reality possibilities, you're asking for the possibilities that somewhere the universe and consciousness know are possible. Because let's face it, this reality is not the only choice for possibilities, okay? There are very few possibilities in this reality. There are infinite possibilities beyond it. And we've got to let our mind go enough to stop trying to control ourselves into possibilities. This question gets us there. What beyond this reality, meaning beyond the box, what beyond this reality possibilities are available that I think are not possible, which addresses the element of your mind that tells you that nothing else is possible, little robot. Nothing else is possible. Why would you think that something else could be possible? Don't you know that this is all that is possible? Stop trying to ask for possibilities. You're going to break me. Okay. What beyond this reality possibilities are available that I think are not possible, I think, therefore I am stupid, okay, that I think are not possible, that if I allowed the possibilities, if I just opened up and allowed possibilities beyond this box as possible, would actualize a different reality, meaning a different reality could then show up, could then be in existence, and not just this friggin' box. Because let's face it, we don't really like the box, but we've been living in the box, perpetuating the box, and every time we have a chance to get out of the box, we're like, ooh, the box was more comfortable. What if it weren't? What if the undefined space of possibilities beyond the box started becoming more comfortable for us? What else would be possible then?
Yes, please. Yes, please to that.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So, Dain, we're lucky because we get you with us a couple times later in the day. So you're going to be on again later in a couple hours with Gary Douglas. Yay! And then later in the day to talk about what is energy, because that's another topic I know you could talk about for hours. So I'm excited about that. If you guys are interested in the schedule for the day, you can find it at globalaccessbarsday.com. There's a little drop down that says schedule, so you can see when Dain's on next. And Dain has literally hundreds of videos on YouTube. So please go check it out. Subscribe to the channel so you can find out when new videos are released. You can follow him on Facebook at Dr. Dain Heer or on Instagram at Dain Heer. And there's all sorts of free stuff on your website too, like a lot of more information about the clearing statement, some free audios, different things at drdainheer.com. So I just wanted to say thank you a lot for being with us.
Truly my pleasure. And thank you and the amazing team behind this. The people that are watching probably have no idea what a ginormous, gargantuan task this was. And I so thank you for doing this. And also everybody watching, thank you so much for being here. And also, what can we together create in our lives and as the world? And how much fun can we have doing it? And how easy can it be? Let's do this thing.
Let's do this thing. And I know a lot of people are probably going to want to rewatch this one, maybe take notes on the questions you just gave throughout the day. So later, we need to give our amazing team time to upload the interview. But later in the day and for the next week, you can find the replays to today at globalaccessbarsday.com. There's a header little section called Replay Station, where you can find them. So you guys can go back and watch this. You can also find the translation. So we have over 22 languages being translated today. So there'll be replays of some parts of the day in the languages and the whole day in English. And just thank you, Dr. Dain. We're excited to see you again later.
Awesome. Thank you. Happy Global Bars Day.
Happy Global Bars Day.